Hello and welcome to the Healthified Mother Podcast. I'm your host, Corey, and I'd like to welcome my wife, Christy, along with our guest, Tina. Say hello, Tina.
Hello.
I'd like to introduce Tina. Tina Adams, she's a gifted coach and co-founder of the company Creator Community for Profitable Living. Through one-on-one coaching and group coaching, Tina and her husband, Daniel, help small business owners develop a vital emotional and relational skills that empower them to fulfill their inspired visions for growth and impact. Tina's manifesting skills scored her a speaking opportunity at a popular conference for creative entrepreneurs, as well as sealed the victory at a family bingo tournament. That's probably an interesting story. But what she appreciates most about her manifesting journey is how she's learned to find peace and joy in the here and now, even when those circumstances are less than ideal. And so, as you can guess from the introduction, that's what we're here to talk about today, is manifesting. So Tina, why don't we start by just kind of giving us a little bit more on your background.
Okay, well, my manifesting background, I guess I got there from, I would say how probably a lot of people find it, is from a need. And I was in a pretty blah state of life. Didn't think I had depression, but turned out I did. And it just kind of lasted for a long time. And so I was looking for more, looking for something in life to be joyful about. And so I started just learning all that I could and reading all the books and trying to find hope, trying to find light and truth and joy somewhere, because I wasn't finding it in my life as it was. So then found lots of books. One of the biggest catalysts for me was Leslie Householder's Rare Faith stuff, and her Mindset Mastery program was a big shift for me, but it's been even quite the journey still trying to implement all the things that I learned there.
So, how long ago did you take her Mindset Mastery course?
I think that was about 2018. So it's been a journey for sure, and still is.
Yes. I guess we have that in common, that, Christy and I have kind of been introduced to this work through mostly Leslie Householder. And Christy, feel free to chime in here. Like, when did we take the course?
I took Mindset Mastery in spring of 2022, and you took it later.
It was last year, so 2023.
Yeah.
So compared to us, you're a seasoned veteran, right, Tina?
Maybe in some ways, and not so much in others.
Yeah, it's not a competition. So for you, like, when you were introduced to it in 2018, like, what was it like? Was it like a light bulb going off in your head when you started to learn? Like, what was that experience like to kind of start that initial journey of diving into it?
I think for me, I was still pretty locked into, like, not super open to a growth mindset yet. Still kind of stuck in, this is who I am and how I am, and it's just really hard to change my beliefs. And I had some hope that I could, but not a lot of belief that I could, and not a lot of, like, just still felt pretty stuck, I guess. And I have a little bit of stubbornness in my personality. So I think there was some stubbornness of hanging on to, this is just how it is. And so I haven't had, and I'm not really a light bulb kind of person. Like, most of my growth happens subtly and over time. And eventually I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm in a completely different place than I used to be.
So the line upon line, slow and steady.
Yeah.
I remember when I took one of my favorite parts about mindset mastery is the inconsequential goal. Do you remember anything about your inconsequential goal that you set?
That I really struggled to pick one because I get so up in my head and I'm like, okay, this is going to be my goal. But then it's like, well, is that good enough or right enough, or like just way overthink things?
Uh-huh.
I think I kind of sort of picked a couple different ones and vacillated between different ones, and then finally one of them kind of sort of manifested itself, so I called that good enough.
Called it good enough. Yeah, so for the audience, if you don't know, like Leslie Householder teaches kind of a manifesting as a skill, and one of the ways to start practicing the skill initially, because again, your emotions are highly involved, and so you can either be repelling your goal with your thoughts and feelings, or as the law of attraction states, attracting it. So you choose an inconsequential goal so that you have no emotional attachment to it either way, whether it happens or it doesn't happen. Like, for example, some people in my class were like, I want to see a pink Bronco. And it was like right recently after the new version of the Bronco had been released. And so this lady's goal her inconsequential goal was to see a pink one, because it would be really rare to see a pink one of a new model like that. And she kind of lived in a rural town, so it was even less likely. And she was like, if I was able to experience that, like, I mean, who cares if I don't? But if I did, that'd be an inconsequential goal that I could be like, wow, I manifested that. And sure enough, she did. I can't remember the exact story, but she saw her pink Bronco and was so thrilled and like excited about it. And so in that way, in practicing inconsequential goals, Leslie teaches her students how to roll that into eventually setting goals that are consequential and manifesting them. Do you remember your inconsequential goal for your mindset mastery course?
Yeah, so I had several different inconsequential goals, but one that I really enjoyed was I asked the universe, God, whatever your belief is, I asked to receive a bag of hand-me-down clothes, because in Alaska, people used to give us clothes all the time for our kids. And then I was like, I think here we just moved to Arizona and we don't have like the people who used to give us clothes. Now we're going to have to buy clothes for all the kids. So I just wanted to receive a bag, like a white trash bag of clothes. And I just envisioned it on my front porch. I envisioned like going through it and seeing, cute clothes for my girls, for the kids, whatever, and maybe even something that I could fit that would be cute and I would keep. And I didn't really tell anybody about my inconsequential goal. And it didn't show up exactly as I imagined, because I didn't get a bag on the porch. But I went to my friend's house for their Christmas party, and she's like, oh, hey, I have a bag of clothes from the girls for you guys. And she hands me this white bag of clothes, and I looked through it, and there were super cute things for the kids and especially for my girls. And then there was even a couple of shirts that fit me that I kept. And I was like, oh my gosh, it works. Like, this totally worked. So yeah, that was really fun.
Now, I have multiple questions I want to ask you, Tina. I'm going to try and keep them in order. One simple question, because this is kind of an introduction for our audience to manifesting. Like a lot of people don't know anything about it. So again, we mentioned Leslie Householder, but if someone were to come to you and be like, where should I start? Like, do you have a book or a course, or like, what would be your recommendation of a resource or something that your company that you guys have is like, what's the first resource that someone could kind of dive into to ease into learning about manifesting?
Yeah, I would definitely send them to Leslie Householder's stuff. And also right now I'm I just recently read this book and started this book club around the book Ask and It Is Given. It's like Jerry and Esther Hicks, The Teachings of Abraham, if you're familiar with that, which if you're new to manifesting, you may not be, a little more in the out there realm, but
a little deeper.
That book, I feel like for me has closed a lot of the gaps, things that I struggled with in some of the mindset mastery stuff that weren't quite clicking. Some of those things have come together a little bit more, and maybe it's with time, maybe it's this book, combination of things, but those would be my two that come off the top of my head.
Well, I mean, line upon line, right? Like that's the process. It's just when we're ready, the information. I don't know. I the way I see it, we manifest when we're ready for the next thing to learn. It kind of comes to us, right? And the other question I forgot. So I'm going to go to you, Christine. Ask you the same question. What would be a resource you would point to help people get started?
Yeah, I definitely like Leslie's work was super helpful, but I've read some other things about manifesting that have helped too. Carol Tuttle has her Mastering Affluence book, and that book I'd already read The Jackrabbit Factor, I think, but I was reading Mastering Affluence, and she talked about how to pray. And she said that when she prays, she doesn't beg God for things. She prays, like asks once and then thanks God for the things that he's given. And rather than this plea, it's a thank you and then gratitude. Thank you for this beautiful amount of money that showed up in our bank account. And you're like, well, no money has showed up in my bank account. I can't say that yet. She's like, somewhere in the future, money has showed up in your bank account, and you can express gratitude in the future for that. And as you do that, you're drawing that closer to you, right? And so just changing the way I prayed from like sort of this begging, whining, like, why aren't you taking care of us, God, to thanking him for always taking care of us has totally shifted my perception. Like, I really do feel like we are wealthy and blessed because we have what we need when we need it all the time. We've never had to just scrape and struggle and muck out an existence, right? Like, it's been such a huge blessing, and that has allowed me to receive more as well. So yeah, I think those are two really good resources to learn about manifesting and just changing your beliefs, that it's not lying to say affirmations or to thank God for stuff that you can't physically hold in your hands yet, right? It's coming to you.
I remembered my question, Tina, that I wanted to ask, because again, our podcast is about motherhood, making motherhood fun and having connected families that work. Has manifesting affected your family life or your life as a mother?
I would say 100%, because it has affected my relationship with myself, which affects my relationship with everything and everyone around me. It's also affected my financial situation, which affects my family. And also like my relationship, I have one son, and my relationship with him, like similar to that idea of how we pray and being able to shift into gratitude before things happen, and being able to just like shift our perspectives and start to see the world differently and see people differently. And it doesn't all have to be about manifesting. Sometimes it's just about gratitude and just shifting our perspective on what is as we help grow it into what we want it to be.
Awesome. Yes. And that's awesome. And the I like how you pointed out. I mean, we use the word manifesting a lot, but it's not always just about that, right? It's a huge portion is about our perspective. That's very, very true. Let's see here. So the concept raising your vibration comes up a lot in the teachings. How do you define that? What that means? Like do you feel like you have learned how to raise your vibration, and what does that mean to you?
Definitely. And sometimes, like, if I tune in and start to pay attention, I can actually feel the energy like buzzing in my body. But at the most simple level, I feel like it's raising your mood. Like, I'm in this low mood, and how can I raise that feeling to where I've got a little more energy or a little more joy, or when I'm experiencing some of these lower emotions, which doesn't necessarily mean bad, just like they're a lower vibration energy. And how can I shift those to a higher vibration energy?
And how did you learn to do that?
And interestingly for me, we were talking about the goals earlier, and I would get so up in my head about the goals and like trying to word it perfectly and trying to, am I doing this right? And finally I had to just step back from the goals and be like, okay, I'm just not going to worry about that. And I'm going to focus on raising my vibration, because Leslie teaches the laws, and one of the laws is the law of vibration. And so it was just like, okay, what can I do to just kind of raise my overall state and open myself to more joy, to more gratitude, to more goodness? And for me, it was just a baby step process of, how can I be a little bit more grateful today? How can I be a little bit more hopeful and optimistic? How can I notice my thoughts and notice the ones, like, notice how my thoughts are affecting me, and notice the ones that are creating more of these lower emotions, and notice the thoughts that create more of the positive emotions. And the more I started to pay attention to my thoughts and my emotions, the more I started to realize that I had a lot more influence over that than I thought I did, and started to make some of these shifts. And so for me, manifesting a lot was part of what got me kind of out of that depressive rut that I had struggled with for years. Just this focus on, how can I bring myself back to a better mood? And it's those little baby step, like, I don't want to get off the couch right now, but what's one thing I can do to feel a little more joy or a little more hope in this moment, and just reach for that.
And was there one thing that you were able to hold on to that helped propel you in those moments? Like, what was it that you were able to hold on to that motivated you to push through those difficult moments?
I think some of it was reading the inspiring stories of seeing what other people were creating, but that was kind of a two-way street, where it was inspiring and motivating, and also like, oh, and I'm still down in this hole, and how can they manifest all these things, and how come I can't? And so that was both inspiring, and also I had to balance that with not doing too much that I felt overwhelmed or discouraged by that. And then also, let's see, what else did I hold on to? I think part of just getting better at celebrating the small wins. And it wasn't necessarily something to hold on to, but like a practice to hold on to, is just celebrating those small wins, and celebrating, like, hey, I got out of bed and showered today. And if that's all I have to celebrate, but that's really worth celebrating, then I get to celebrate that. And as I got back to more of a normal functioning level, I had more and more things to celebrate. And I work with a lot of small business owners. And when you run a business, it can be really easy to just always be focused on the next task, the next goal, the next milestone. And if you don't take time to stop and celebrate how far you've come. It's a recipe for just this always striving and never quite finding the joy and the peace and the accomplishment.
I like that, like, so when you're talking about, you know, the lower vibrations, and we're talking about manifesting and attracting, if we are stuck down in those lower vibrations, we're attracting more of that, right? Because like attracts like, and we get, you know, frustrated. Well, how come they're manifesting all this positive stuff and I'm manifesting way down here, if I'm manifesting at all? And when we're able to just take a little step higher, like we start to see, hey, I'm attracting more positive things, and we can grow so much faster and so much easier, rather than, you know, being stuck and feeling like a victim and everybody else has it easier than me. And I think that seeing those little tiny victories, that's super helpful for me when I'm feeling like meh, or you know what, like this isn't working, I've been trying. When I see little tiny victories, even if it's that inconsequential goals, like, hey, look, I manifested a parking spot, or all the lights were green for me, or whatever small thing it is, it helps me to be like, okay, so if I could do those small things, I can do the bigger stuff. Just have to be patient through, you know, law of gestation and whatever. So yeah, that I hold on to that. Like, I know it's possible because I've had these small victories.
Yeah, it's easy when you're starting out to get caught up in that, like, well, the rich just get richer and the poor get poorer, but really it's just a like attracts like. And so the more you can be like what you want to attract, the more you will attract more of that. And it is a process, and being patient with yourself and patient with the process, I think, is huge.
Yeah. Corey, you remember that movie we watched years ago? I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, Golden Mind. And there's this boy who his parents both died, and then he had to take care of his little sister, and he started buying gold. He got a job
Yes.
washing dishes at a restaurant. And every time that he would have a payday, he would go and invest in some gold. And he had like someone who would help watch his little sister. Anyway, they barely made ends meet, but he kept living at that same level, but investing gold. So even though he was making more, he wouldn't spend more. He just, you know, but he started learning, he kept learning. He finished high school, he kept studying and learning, and he would find mentors that were more intelligent and had more wisdom and whatever than him. And eventually he bought out the restaurant that he owned, and then he started several more chains of this restaurant. I mean, not that he owned the restaurant he worked at, like he started washing dishes there. Eventually he became the manager, and then he became the owner, and then he started, you know, like a franchise.
He took his gold. He took his gold, and it was like it was at a high when he sold it, and then he was able to take that huge amount of profit and buy the business.
Right. And so, you know, you could say, well, the poor keep getting poorer, but they don't when they choose something different, right? And the rich keep getting richer, but they don't when they're choosing poor choices and consequences, right? We've seen tons of rich people go bankrupt, and then we've seen tons of poor people rise to wealth and riches. And it seems like it's just one way, but in reality, if we look around, we can see how, no, just following these principles, it works for good or for bad.
And just like attracts like, when you have these beliefs that are running, you find evidence for them in everything around you.
Yeah.
Either good or bad. Yeah.
Right.
And I love the phrase your husband first told me. I think of it often. I have it in the dashboard of my truck. how good can you stand it? And I say I love that question because I honestly had to come to terms with, in the beginning, it was like I couldn't stand it very good. I'd have I would be trying so hard to think positively, and I'd have this, start to see evidence of it and have these little wins, and then it would just be super uncomfortable. It would just be like, this isn't me. Like, I can't do this. And I'd just be like, self-destruct, and then boom, and literally like self-destruct and do silly, stupid things just to make and I would make myself feel miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything like, what was your experience of kind of with that? How good can you stand it?
It's definitely a process. And I just had a thought. What was it?
Well, I could ask this question. Was it you or your husband that kind of like, or where did that phrase come from?
That's a great question. I'm not sure where it came from.
And then maybe its origin is a story he could tell.
And I think it just came from probably, our own experience and his own experience of similar process of growth happens. And then a lot of people talk about self-sabotage. I don't love the term, but I love the book, The Big Leap, that talks about our upper limit. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but Gay Hendricks, he talks about, we all have this like thermostat of where we feel comfortable and normal. And when we start to rise above that, we're like, this is not our normal. And so something, and usually mostly on a subconscious level, is just bringing us back to our normal, to where we're comfortable. And I think maybe the thought I was having earlier was like, we think we want to make these big jumps, but in some ways it's a gift that we don't, because when we do make the big jumps, we're like, whoa, this is unfamiliar and I don't know what to do with this. And it's really uncomfortable. But if we can grow gradually, then we can start to acclimate to this new higher temperature, this new level of wealth and success and joy. And not self-destruct from too much goodness at once, but just let it come in as it comes in and appreciate it as it comes in, so that we can create more space over time to receive it.
That's something that I don't remember where. I mean, I know Leslie talks about it, but I read a book and I don't remember where it was. But when we are we think we want, like you were saying, we think we want to be at a certain level or in a certain place, and then we go there and we're so uncomfortable that we end up like running back to our old self, to our old problems, whatever, because they're comfortable and they feel good. And we have to make excuses. And I've seen that so many times in my own life and in the lives of friends and family. Somebody gets a nice car and they're like apologizing to everyone for their nice car because, but I got a really good deal on it and I don't drive it that often and whatever it is, right? Or I know I grew up when someone said, I really like your dress. I got it at for whatever price, I got it at DI or Goodwill for $3, like, as if that made it a nicer dress. Like it was, I don't even know why we do that in society and as a culture, but I've learned to just say, oh, thank you, I like it too, or whatever, and gracefully accept that without trying to downplay it because I'm feeling uncomfortable receiving a compliment, right? And so if I go to a super fancy restaurant and I don't feel comfortable there, I don't know which fork to eat with, whatever, I might run back to Chili's or someplace that like, okay, I think I'm comfortable here because I don't eat there. And I think I want to live that life. And then I realized I'm not there yet, right? I'm not ready for that. And it's important for us to not try and, like you were saying, take those too big of leaps, because then we feel like, I don't really want that. And maybe we do. We just tried to skip a step, right? Not a good idea to skip too far ahead, like if I wanted to skip to 8th grade when I was in 5th grade, maybe I should, go through 6th and 7th grade. Like I would be overwhelmed and I would feel like I can't do this. This is too hard. But if I took the proper timing and steps, 8th grade wouldn't be too hard for me. Right. So yeah, I think it's key to not try and jump ahead to, here's where I want to be and I'm going to manifest this and I'm going to do it now because I want to do it now when we won't really be ready for that.
And the more often
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The more often I've had this urgency of like, it needs to happen now. I need to be up here now. I usually end up crashing and backsliding for a while just to get caught back up to where I was. And it's like, if I would have just like baby stepped my way up. I actually saw recently a picture with like 2 different ladders, and one had just like lots of normal rungs, and then one had like a rung here and then a rung here, and it was like
huge steps.
Yeah, huge steps. And which one's going to get you up the wall faster? It's the just like normal one step at a time, not like, oh, I'm on this rung, but I don't know how I'm going to reach that next one. Maybe if I jump, and then I fall, and then the ladder falls, and then now I've got to get it all set back up again. And
then you might have a broken leg, and then you're going to try and climb the ladder with a broken leg.
Yeah, but everybody else is at the top of the ladder. I need to be there. It's like, well, just keep climbing and you'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something I want to point this out for the audience, is what you've been talking about. Like, we're talking about raising your vibration, and when you were saying like, when someone gives you a compliment, it's a gift, and literally, especially the more sincere the compliment, part of the gift is they're raising your vibration. Like, or if they're saying thank you, or anyways, when someone's like sharing something with you, it's a gift emotionally, and that's an opportunity to raise your vibration. So when we have this resistance to it, like just like, oh, it's nothing, and we don't receive it, I think that's evidence of our lack of comfort at those higher vibrations. Just to point out, like, if someone in the audience wants to kind of review in their own mind where they are, well, how do you react when someone gives you a compliment? How do you react when someone tells you sincerely, like, thank you? That's a good indicator of how comfortable you are with that higher level of gratitude. Oh, speaking of gratitude, Tina, how has your experience with gratitude evolved?
It's definitely still evolving, and some days I'm better at it than others. But I've gotten better. And Christy was talking earlier about the idea of expressing gratitude before something happens. And when I first heard that concept, I was like, no way. Like, I don't believe it. I don't like it. I'm not going to do it. Just no. And over time, again, the baby steps, as I've just kind of let that concept simmer on the back burner where I wasn't ready to address it yet, it started to be like, oh, this is a real possibility. And I start to see that there are things to be grateful for even in this moment. And that maybe I don't have to like stretch myself into, I'm so grateful that I like spread out my whole ideal, I live in my dream house and like live my perfect life, because my brain's going to be like, nope, you're lying. That's not true. That's not your reality. But like, what's the most true thought I can reach for and be grateful for? And sometimes I may not be able to reach into the future at all with my gratitude. Sometimes it's like only for now, or sometimes maybe even just for the past. But if I can reach for the most true grateful thought I can find, then I can be with that, and then let that additional gratitude simmering on the back burner be ready for when I'm open to more gratitude. And one of the things I learned when I was struggling with all this depression was that my mind goes blank sometimes. I learned just that my mind goes blank.
No,
And I
I'm like,
learned to
if
love
you
myself.
keep talking, it'll probably
Anyway.
come to you. If you keep talking, it'll probably come to you.
what you
And
were
we can-
saying about the gratitude, and not having enough right now for the future, and maybe not having enough for the present, but at least having some for the past, right? That was kind of a concept that I learned when I first started shifting my mindset. I mean, it's been a process my whole life, but I took some major steps and jumps in that direction in 2018. And I started to try to like change my relationship with others and forgive myself, forgive them, and just help my relationship be better. And that was difficult, and I beat myself up a lot. I'm not humble enough, I'm not righteous enough, I'm not whatever. And I wanted to, people would say, well, you need to love this person or forgive this person. I'm like, yeah, no, not going to. And I didn't have love for myself. Like, I didn't have love for that person. And I had to ask God if I could borrow some of his love and share that, like, I don't really have love for this person, but I know you do. So I'm just going to ask if I can borrow a measure of that and give that out. And as I did that, I grew more love for that person. And eventually I was creating my own love, and I had my own stash of love that I could give out to, others around me, instead of having to borrow from the Lord's endless supply of love. And I think the same thing can apply to gratitude. We might not feel like we have much to be grateful for, but we can ask Heavenly Father if we can borrow some of his gratitude or some of his vision to see what we should or could be grateful for, and then express gratitude for those things, even if we're looking around and unable to see anything or remember anything or feel anything. The Lord always has something he can share with us that we can be grateful for.
And I did remember my thoughts. That was
sometimes
I'm in a place where it's just like, I cannot muster gratitude right now. And so maybe I need to go just like let out all the things that I'm not grateful for and go journal and get all of that out. But then in the times when I am in an open space, really capitalizing on that and choosing extra into gratitude when I'm feeling it, and like letting those moments kind of expand the overall gratitude tank, so that even in the moments when it's like, nope, not happening, I'm raising the overall vibration because I'm putting in extra effort in the times when I feel like I can't.
Right. And you mentioned journaling, because Leslie Householder has some very specific teachings on how to maximize the benefit of your journaling. What has been your experience with journaling?
Had a lot of experiences with journaling, and I've resisted journaling a lot, but I've also had a lot of benefit from journaling. And I do lots of different kinds. Sometimes it's just like stream of consciousness, just get out whatever needs to get out. Sometimes it's journaling, like future journaling my desires, but in the current state. Sometimes
as if they were already present.
Yeah, as if they had already happened. sometimes I resist that. And so I don't feel in a space to do that. And so I just journal about whatever's on my mind. So yeah, lots of different ways to journal. And sometimes even journaling about why you don't want to journal can be useful.
And what value do you think it brings, to the process?
I think it helps create clarity for sure. And sometimes I can get so up in my head and just these endless loops of thoughts spinning and spinning and spinning, and fears and worries, and I don't even know what I want and whatever. And I start writing that all down, and I start to see like, oh, A, things are not as scary as I think they are, or B, there's not as much actually going on in there as I think there is. There's just like a couple thoughts like looping over and over, making it seem like there's so much. And so it just kind of gets it all out of here, starts to create space, which I feel like allows then clarity to come in, allows your desires to rise to the surface, and helps do those baby steps, shift the vibration up the scale. Because if you're locked into these emotions and these feelings and thoughts, you can start to get all of those out, give them a space, because sometimes they just need to be expressed. They just need to be voiced and witnessed sometimes. And maybe that's witnessed by you in a journal. Maybe you do get to share them with another human. And once they're out, then there's space for new ideas to come in.
Yeah. I'm terrible at journaling, so I'm still working on that one myself. What about you, Christy? What has been your experience with journaling?
When I was a kid, I wrote in my journal every day from the time I was like 10 or 12. Years and years and years of journals, and they were seriously most of the time like, I ate breakfast and I went to school, and like they were just a list of things I had done in the day, and a little bit about feelings, like maybe tiny, small, not much, a little bit of thoughts, and maybe like I have a crush on this boy or something stupid like that. And it wasn't until probably, I don't know, 10 years ago that I actually started journaling. Like I started a gratitude journal, and I started journaling in a way that was not just a diary, a list of what I had done.
An itinerary.
Yeah. And it started to shift a lot of things in me. I realized I was a more creative writer than I thought I was. I realized that I, like Tina was saying, had like some loops and things playing in my mind. And when I wrote it down, it was like, that's it. Like I would get overwhelmed. I have all these things to do. And when I wrote them down, I'm like, 5? Only 5? Let me think about that again. Like, wait, I only have 5 things to do? And then I could prioritize those, and I could do it in like 2 hours. And yet I'd been thinking for a whole week, I have so much to do, because my brain was like, well, I have to keep playing these 5 things over so she doesn't forget. But the minute I wrote it down, my brain's like, okay, I can forget. She's written it down. And then I just had to remember to look at that, which is another problem. But at least once I had written it down, my brain cleared up, and I wasn't going, over and over and over again on the same 5 things. Like I have a million things to do. And so writing down what you think is overwhelming you and stressing you out and depressing you and all these things, when you look at it, you're like, that's all? Oh, okay. So it really is a visual way to get out of your head and to move past things. And even if you have trouble with like nightmares or something, write it down, write down your nightmare. Like it's so stupid. Like why was I scared of that? That's so dumb. Like in your mind, that would make such a creepy movie. Oh my gosh, that was horrible. You start to write it down. You're like, wouldn't make a good movie. Doesn't even make sense. It's actually really dumb. Never mind. And you're able to just like process and let it go. So that for me, journaling has been a way to process things, to let things out, to let them go instead of just playing like this audio recording in my head over and over again that's ominous and not even real. So
thank you for sharing. And speaking of journaling, what are some other strategies for overcoming doubts and negative thinking while trying to learn manifesting?
I was going to add with the journaling sometimes, and I don't consider myself an artist, but I'll just grab a box of like Crayola markers and just start drawing what I'm feeling or whatever comes out, almost like a drawing journaling. And that also a lot of times creates space, or sometimes creates awareness, because I'll start to see like, oh, I didn't realize that was in there, but it's showing up in this way. And so that can be helpful too. But then remember the question again: overcoming doubts and
negative thinking.
One that I've struggled with, but I have found is helpful, is to not beat myself up over the negative thinking and not judge myself. And like, because one of the pitfalls I think we fall into with all the personal development and all the manifesting and all the just like trying to grow ourselves is that we learn these new things and then we think we should like magically be at that standard and then just beat ourselves up and like, why am I the worst? Like now I know how my thinking's affecting me and I know that I should be thinking positively and I'm not. And so then I just come up with this whole list of reasons I'm the worst, and that doesn't help me create more of what I want. So just being compassionate with myself and honest with myself about this is where I am right now, and sure, I know this much and it's going to take a little bit of time for my body to catch up, for my habits and behaviors to catch up, and that's okay. Breath is another huge thing, and Daniel and I talk about it in our business all the time. Just like, it's so simple, but breath is so powerful. Like when you're starting to spin in the negative thoughts, when you're starting to have doubts, just like take a breath and pause and create space again for new ideas. And a lot of times that breath gives you that pause to just notice and become aware. Oh, what is it that I'm thinking? What is it that I'm feeling? What is that creating for me? Do I like what that's creating? Can I make a small shift here that will create a new experience for me? So those have been some big ones for me.
Right. Like, would you say that one of the first things that this work requires for your own development is like becoming self-aware?
Definitely, 100%. And it's been probably my favorite part of the whole journey, is just coming to know and love myself so much more.
And go ahead, Christy.
I was just gonna say, I agree. Like it's even another level to like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do, what I want to do, how to do it. And I've even taught other people, and I'm still a failure. I'm still no good. And then you really beat yourself up, because now I taught other people and they're gonna expect me to be good at manifesting or good at mothering or good at whatever we have been teaching or sharing with people like Tina and Daniel. Now they have to be like perfect at relationships, right? No, we don't have to be perfect at whatever it is that we're sharing. And like my kids had a swim teacher, right? And she was like, look, the butterfly stroke, I don't know who invented that, like dumbest thing ever. It's so hard to do. I can teach it. Don't ask me to do it. And she's a swim teacher. She's been teaching for years. She's been on swim teams and all sorts of things. And she's like, I can't do the butterfly stroke to save my life. Like I can demonstrate for like 5 seconds and I could teach other people to do it. But she's okay with that. She's come to terms with that. And I think we have to do the same thing. Like, look, I can teach it. I know what I want to be able to do. I can demonstrate it for 5 seconds, but I'm not there yet. I'm working my way there, and give ourselves that grace and take away the expectation that now I'm supposed to always be perfect at it. And anyone who sees me or knows me, now they're going to expect me to be perfect at XYZ because I taught it or I shared it. It's just not true. Yeah.
And Tina, I don't know if this has been part of your experience, but like the phrase letting the cat out of the bag, part of my journey of becoming self-aware has also been coupled along the letting the cat out of the bag of like letting people know that I have weaknesses. Like I spent my whole life hiding my weaknesses, not just from other people, but from myself. So like it's been this whole long journey of becoming self-aware and then becoming okay with like letting the cat out of the bag. Like that's why I said in the beginning, I put my foot in my mouth. Like that's just always the way I've been, and I don't know that it'll ever change. So like accepting it and just being authentic with it. Like, so how is authenticity played into your journey?
I think, like you said, like, first of all, acknowledging that we're human and that we make mistakes, and not even just make mistakes, but that we're here trying stuff and learning, and it's messy. Creation is messy. Self-development is messy. And the creative process is messy. I mean, you pull out the finger paints, and even if you're not finger painting and getting it all over yourself, like you pull out the supplies and get them all out, and it gets messy. And just learning to be okay with that, learning to bring compassion and grace. And it's also helped me like starting to see everyone as human, like all these people that I put on a pedestal, and it was like, oh, they're perfect. And really, like, we're all just here trying to figure things out. And some may put on a better show and not show their weaknesses as much. And some may not have as many weaknesses in certain areas that you admire, but we're all just here figuring it out. And so authenticity has definitely been a huge part of my journey, and a big part of like who I am and strive to be. Like, I don't want people to think that I'm this perfect, untouchable. Like, I love that. I feel like as a culture, we're building in more authenticity and vulnerability, and just being willing to humanize ourselves and each other and see each other as all equals trying to figure it out together. So
when HD TV came out, like, I didn't like it at first. I was like, oh, I don't like this. Like, I can see like all of their little wrinkles and skin tags and mold, like, ew. Is when we were in the 90s and stuff, we were not used to seeing that. Everybody was like airbrushed and perfect. And then, this high definition TV came out, and you could see like a little fly buzz by or whatever, and you're like, what? Like, not used to that. But I think as a culture, we've gotten more used to that. And then reality, which is not really reality, but dramatized reality TV that came out, and people weren't so scripted, and it's kind of shifted us away from this idea that we have to look like, this perfect person, like the Happy Gilmore, or not Happy Gilmore, what's the Leave It to Beaver family, right? This happy little, family where the mom looks perfect and she has her husband's toast and breakfast ready every morning, and he goes off to work and the children do what they are supposed to do. Like, that's not reality, and it's silly for us to have these expectations. And I'm thankful that we are starting to realize, hey, this is life. We aren't expected to always have everything together, and that can gives me, I hope it gives other people, a sense of calm and relief that they don't have to show, always put their best foot forward. What if they shove it right in their mouth? It's okay.
I don't know if it's going to show that. I was raising my hand. So our hour is almost up. Time is flown. Let me ask like one last question. Tina, what is your perspective on the balance between manifestation and patience / just sheer acceptance of how the world is or your life is today?
That was a big question, and one that I've spent a lot of time with and don't have a lot of answers with, but I have a lot more peace with it, and just letting it all be a process and learning to be grateful both for what is right now in the moment, because that's really all there is, and also having excitement for the future, and also allowing myself to be dissatisfied in a way, like acknowledge that there's some discomfort here because I want to grow. I want to, I know more is possible, so I can be okay with the dissatisfaction and also be grateful and also be looking toward the future. So it's kind of, I've been just seeing and feeling how much of life is just paradox, and how can these two things be true at the same time? There's a scripture in the New Testament that talks about, I know both how to be abased and how to abound. I know how to be full and hungry at the same time, and just starting to explore that space and what that looks like and what that feels like to be both satisfied and also hungering, desiring for more. And so it's not necessarily something that I have an answer for, but I have a lot more peace playing in the question and just letting things be what they are.
I mean, I love that you pointed out that it oftentimes these natural or these universal laws that we learn and we read in these books, and they contradict each other. It's a fascinating paradox, and yeah, so it's hard to say in our few minutes that we have left. That's a whole other topic, the paradoxes of the universe and the universal laws. But I just like Leslie points out in her classes, and I think in her books, that what she's trained herself to do is just pick one of the universal laws. She teaches that there's 9 of them, but really there's no, there could be more, and I think there are more, but she just picks one. And what's the one that by practicing it in this moment will help me the most? And so she has a practical approach to it, to each moment. And she calls them tools in a tool belt, there are tools in the tool belt, and she just tries to, and if she gets it wrong, she's like, well, maybe try another one.
I think we get stuck in this idea that we have to do everything from start to finish. We have to build on, well, this is the first law, so I got to master that before I can go to the second law, or whatever we're doing in life. And sometimes, I'm thinking about like, if you want to get in the pool, there's like a billion ways to get in the pool. You don't have to take the stairs. You don't have to just enter gradually. You could dive in from any point, whatever. And we think, well, I got to do it this way, and then I'm supposed to be good at this, and I can't try that before I've tried this. And really just do, if you're struggling with something and it feels like the 8th law is going to help you, great, work on that. If you are really struggling and it feels like the 2nd or the 1st law, good, do that. Don't try to like, well, I'm not perfect at this yet, so I can't move on to that. I think we stop ourselves by putting limitations that aren't real, that aren't there. We put limitations on ourselves, and then we don't allow ourselves to do what feels right in the moment right now, what we're really ready and prepared for. And it isn't like math. You don't always have to do addition, the parentheses, exponents, like you don't always have to follow right, the order of operations. Like maybe there is no order for these operations. And sure, it might be easier and make more sense, but sometimes, maybe the order seems like it's not being followed because there are no parentheses, there are no exponents, there's no multiplication. And so we're like, where do I start? What do I do? Look, it's addition and subtraction. Just do it. Like we're overthink
it.
Everything.
Overthink it.
Yeah, and like just jump in the pool. Don't worry where you get in from. Don't worry about what you have to do first or whatever.
And don't worry how other people are getting in the pool. Like you just do you.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely think that it's the work of manifesting is more about who you are and than the results that you see in your life, because the results come after, so to speak, you manifest yourself as a new person. Well, our hour is up. So Tina, why don't you share what you're doing, promote what you're doing, and anything that you want our audience, to know about.
Well, my husband and I run a free Facebook group called Creator Community for Profitable Living, and we serve small business owners who are growing and manifesting and just excited to live out your purpose. And so that's a great place to come and just get to know who we are and what we're up to. And we also offer membership and one-on-one coaching and all sorts of things. But come join us there and see what we're
And what's your website?
www.createprofitableliving.com.
All right. Well, we invite the audience to go check out Profitable Living, profitable living. So thank you, Tina. We very much appreciate your willingness to come on our very 3rd podcast, our first guest.
And you're my very first podcast, so.
And we greatly appreciate what you and Daniel have done, because it has seriously blessed our family. So thank you for that.
Glad to hear it.
Yes, thank you for being who you are.
Thanks.
Well, this is the first time we've had a guest, so I don't know how to close. So I'm just going to say thank you, and hopefully we'll have you back on the guest another time and talking about other topics related to motherhood and profitable living. So thank you, Tina. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful